حن قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا، حن قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا، يا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا، يا هلا ويا هلا ويا.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the program. It's a lovely Wednesday morning in my part of the world, and of course the politics is not going away. We've just had a cabinet reshuffle. I ain't too happy about it. There's just two issues that we are jumping up and down about, and that of course is Nhlanhla Nene and Pravin Gordhan. For the rest, I rest my case. That's all I want to say about the cabinet reshuffle. But on to the show this morning, and politics still hasn't gone away from the show. We're going to be talking about the budget. We have a lovely young lady coming in to talk to us about the budget. Is it friendly enough? I think not, but we'll unpack all of that a little later on in the program. Then we'll be talking with Suraya Nawab about Islamic Airline's 25th anniversary. But right now we're going to talk to someone who happened to serve the late President Madiba. He was very, very close to him. He was his personal bodyguard. How did this all happen? How did Madiba touch this man's life? Who is he? What are his characteristics, or what's his background like for him to have qualified for this amazing position? His name is Rory Steyn. He was born and brought up in Johannesburg, and he just told me off camera that he's married to a Scottish lady. She is a school teacher and has 3 wonderful children. Rory, good morning. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Julie. Salam alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Family is everything, isn't it? I mean, if you don't have a solid background, the support of your spouse and children, things can become rather challenging in other parts of your life.
Yes. You know, it's interesting that you started that way, because you're correct. For us, family is everything. We've been married for 30 years. I know it's a lot less than you and Ziggy.
Only 3 years.
Oh, okay. But, you know, even the decision as it came in to me in 1996 as to whether or not I would be prepared to move. I was the commander of the police VIP protection unit here in Johannesburg, and the presidential protection unit had only just evolved. When Madiba became our president in 94, there was no such animal as the PPU, my unit, the presidential protection unit. But the commander of it, once it had been established, called me in January of 1996 and said, one of the team leaders is going to study in Canada. Would you consider applying for that position? Because as in my then position as the head of VIP protection, because Madiba had both a home and an office in Joburg, I was spending probably up to 3/4 of my day going ahead with my team and doing the advanced security of whatever venue he was going to be either attending a meeting at, or speaking at, or eating at, or whatever, you know, presidents do. And the commander said, Rory, you know the president, you know the teams, they know you. Would you and your rank is the same, it's the correct rank. Would you consider applying? And I said to him, I think that that's something I would love to do, but give me 24 hours because I need to talk to my family.
That would mean lots of time away from home.
Exactly. And my kids were young at the time. At that time, we only had 2 boys. They were very young because my eldest was only born in 94. So all my kids are born freeze. Mm-hmm. But they were small, man. They were 2 years old. And well, he was 2 years old. And I said to my wife, you know, what do you think? And she said, I think you should do it. So therefore,
an opportunity of a lifetime. Let's face it.
Absolutely. And I just want to say one other thing quickly, Julie. You know, people do have this nomenclature that I was Madiba's personal bodyguard, but that's only true insofar as I was the team leader, or I became after that phone call the team leader of one of 4 teams that protected him. So we had 2 teams in Pretoria and 2 teams in Cape Town for when Parliament was in session. And we had a fantastic number of men and women that protected the president. So I always like to acknowledge that, because it wasn't all about me. I was only the team leader of one of 4 teams. And when my team was working, then I suppose I was the main bodyguard because it was my team on duty. But I have to acknowledge my other colleagues that also worked so hard to protect this wonderful man.
That's very big of you, I must say. Some people just take all the accolades and forget about the people around them.
That's not right.
So it's about family, it's about
Yes.
teamwork, team leadership, etc. Of course, I should imagine working with and for Madiba directly
Yes.
was very definitely one of the highlights of your life.
Oh, unquestionably.
But it goes way, way back.
Yes.
You come from a caliber of the police service that was almost unmatched and unrivaled. I think you can't even make a comparison with the type of policing that is happening, sadly, in this day and age in South Africa.
Yeah. As I was saying to you off camera, Julie, that is largely so. And the problem, as I identify it as a former cop, and it saddens me because I have nothing but the best memories of the almost 18 years that I served as a cop. And I'm very proud of that. I'm most proud of the 5 years that I served Madiba. But the problem as I see it now is that there's a lack of training and a lack of management. I mean, how do you run an organization as complex as a police service in an environment as complicated and violent as South Africa is, when you're constantly chopping and changing the guy at the top? You need continuity, you need a solid, settled command structure, because it starts there, then it filters down, where people manage right down to station level, where people are properly looked after. Commanders care for their men. They don't look down on their men and women and consider them to be less than what they are. And it starts there, and then they need to be properly trained. And we all talk about this concept of community policing, and it probably is the best way to police a community, because you need to work with your community. You don't dominate them and control them. It needs to be something that the community contribute to, because if you don't have your community buying in, how do you fight crime? You need every pair of eyes and every pair of feet walking around in a society and in a community and in a neighborhood to be wanting to be a part of the solution to the problems that are there. And in most, especially the poorer communities, most of the problems stem from poverty and lack of just having resources available. So the police can't be then seen to be adding to that kind of oppressive nature of the society. They must seem to be contributing to that. So cops need to be involved and engaged with their community and win their respect, and that's what I see is lacking, as we was discussing.
Let's look at the training aspect. I mean, we know that in the UK and other places in the Western world, the caliber of cops is totally different to what we have here in South Africa. They need to actually go to university to get a degree, a law degree, to actually then go into the police service. Whereas here you're just taken off the street, possibly with a matric certificate, if that.
No, that's the minimum.
Is that the
Thankfully,
minimum?
yeah.
And you then serve a year or two as a trainee, and then before you know Jack Robinson, you're a cop.
You're right.
And I kind of wonder what needs to change for us to have more confidence, because right now I don't think there's any confidence in the police service.
Very little. So, and that's sad to me too, because as I've said to you, I'm very proud of the role that I and my men and women were able to play. So, what needs to change? We have got an employment problem in South Africa. Everyone knows that. So, I can't understand why we don't do the most rigorous selection process and take the cream of the crop, take the top students, people that really want to make a difference, positive, energized young South Africans. And you and I know there are many of those across every single race group in our country. You get young South Africans that really love this country and want to make a difference. Those are the ones that should be recruited. And they should, as you say, you can take them after university, after bachelor degree level. Take them in, because people graduate from our universities and they can't find work.
Absolutely.
Take those, train them as cops.
Okay, now you've not only, you served in the police service for about 18 years.
Yes.
And then this position came about to be part of the security team for the president, that was the late Madiba.
Yes.
That, would you say, opened up a lot of doors for you? I mean, when did you were also involved in security for the different international cricket teams.
Yes.
Was that post or pre the Madiba stint?
It was pre and post and current.
Okay.
So the way it was pre was when the very first sports tours after the end of sporting isolation started to come to South Africa. There was still resistance from certain quarters. Because remember, South Africa went to our first Olympic Games in '92 at Barcelona. The All Blacks and the Aussies rugby teams came to South Africa in '93 and played test matches. And the first cricket teams, pardon me, I remember Australia coming right at the end of '93, the beginning of '94. So almost in the lead up to our elections in '94, we already had Australia here. And there was still a threat from certain quarters that felt it's too soon, because Madiba was not yet our president. But what the criterion was, the single most important criterion was, are the political changes irreversible? If so, then the international sporting community also needs to give a little bit back and show some recognition for the fact that these changes have been put in place and that they are irreversible. So I know Madiba himself personally, with the late Minister of Sports, Steve Tshwete, they approached the ICC and said, let's see if we can get South Africa into the 1992 Cricket World Cup. And that was quite a thing, because that Cricket World Cup had already been settled. These are the teams that have qualified. This is what the tournament schedule looks like. And the next thing, you get Madiba calling up. And Clive Lloyd from the West Indies was very instrumental in that. And they said, okay, let's get South Africa in. So they had to change the whole tournament schedule.
Wow, what a story. I could sit here all day just talking to you.
Yes, but the point is, you see, that we came back in when there was still quite a threat
and
against,
why
the police were involved. So I was involved as a cop, because I've already told you I was head of VIP protection. Mm-hmm. So when those teams came to Joburg, it was me and my team that would give them a modicum of protection. Right. And then came '94.
Okay, let's hold that thought, and let's also talk about if there were any real threats. How prepared were you and your team? But more about that right after the ad break.
Perfect.
Rory Steyn is my guest. He was working in the VIP protection unit that took care of the late Madiba, him and a whole host of other men and women. And of course, he's here to talk about his amazing life and just how Madiba changed the course of his life and how that opened up amazing opportunities going forward. Stay with us. Welcome back. I'm talking to Rory Steyn. I wish I had more time with him. We've got another 12 minutes on the interview talking about his life, and very especially the way his life was touched by meeting up and working for Madiba as his security guard or personnel. They were obviously, I refer to him as his personal bodyguard, but of course it was a whole team involved here. Now, Rory, this was a life-changing moment, having met Madiba and working very, very closely with him. Tell us about that.
Great question, Julie. Thank you. So I met Madiba on the day that he became our president, on the 10th of May, 1994. Now, I already told you that I was the commander of the VIP unit. Now, if you cast your mind back to that inauguration ceremony, that celebration, we had 184 heads of state, heads of government, royalty, big shots that came to the inauguration. And all the five-star hotels where they were housed were in Joburg. So that securing of those 184 VIPs was the responsibility of me and my team initially, and then we had to get in resources from all over the country.
I can't even begin to imagine the planning and logistics involved in that operation.
You better believe it. And it's like a hazy, nebulous time in my mind, because we were working around the clock, that it's all just mushed into one big memory. Mm-hmm. So at some stage I get a telex, not a fax, not even an email, a telex that says the president, having just sworn the oath of office, will attend a soccer match at Ellis Park on inauguration day. Now think about that. Who does that? Why would you fly by helicopter from Pretoria to come to Ellis Park and attend a soccer match when you've just sworn the oath of office? And you have to host those 184 VIPs for a lunch on the lawns of the presidential guest house. It's a very good question, but somebody really smart on the inauguration committee decided that if we put 60,000 soccer fans into Ellis Park, televise the proceedings from the Union buildings on the big screens, then that is 60,000 fewer people trying to get to the Union buildings, clogging up the road that motorcades must move all these VIPs north on, and more importantly, 60,000 fewer people trying to cram onto the lawns of the Union buildings to attend this inauguration. So it was a stroke of genius, actually. So I think, well, nobody has given me any instructions to do anything different. I better go to Ellis Park like I would have done if it had been F.W. de Klerk coming to a rugby match. So I took my men and women and I took the sniffer dogs and we made sure there was nothing funny in the President's Suite. We posted our men and women at the exits and we waited for the helicopter to land next door on the Technikon Witwatersrand roof. The then security team, which was all ANC, drove the President around the corner and up the vehicle ramp and pulled up outside the President's Suite, where I was standing with some of the SAFA officials and they welcomed him. And he went straight to the lift, down to the dressing room level and walked out the tunnel onto the field. Now imagine that, Julie. Now you've got these 60,000 people who've just literally a half hour ago seen him swear the oath of office, and here he walks out onto the field to greet the teams.
Absolute euphoria.
Euphoria. Bedlam breaks out. And he shakes hands as presidents do, walks back up the tunnel, comes out the lift, and immediately apologizes to the SAFA official, says, "Gentlemen, I've got to get back to Pretoria to host this lunch." And they said, "No problem, sir."
Now, in all of this,
Yes.
all of this was going on, had you already formally met with him? Were you introduced to him?
I wasn't ever formally introduced to him, but I think he knew who I was because there was that historic debate prior to the election, maybe in the 20-somethings of April, because we went to the polls on 27. So maybe about the 20th of April, there was this debate in the Market Theatre, now known as the Nelson Mandela Theatre, between FW and Madiba. And I went there again to secure that stuff. And because it's the right thing to do, I obviously was there because of de Klerk, but I went to Madiba's dressing room as well, and I made sure it was safe. And I told the ANC guys when they got there, "Listen, guys, this is what I've done." And I remember him coming and shaking hands, but I don't think he knew who I was at the time. But he didn't know my name, but he knew the role that I was there was somehow involved with security, Julie. So now, he apologizes to the SAFA officials on Inauguration Day and says, "I've got to get back to Pretoria to host this lunch." He gets into the car, and I step back because my work there is pretty much done until they all start coming back after the lunch. And instead of driving out the vehicle ramp, we see him trying to open the door of this car, which sounds simple, but it's a 3.8-ton armored BMW. You can't just flick an elbow. So the team leader gives the door a good sharp tug and leans in and almost in an impatient fashion says to him, "Tata, why do you want to get out? You know, we've got to go to the helicopter." And the president says nothing to the team leader, who gets out of the way, and the president climbs out of the car, walks around the bonnet of this BMW, and starts heading towards the vehicle ramp over there where they should be driving out. Now, Julie, you need to understand there is nobody there other than maybe 10 or 12 security personnel and cops. No press, nothing. The SAFA officials have since gone back into the President's Suite to go and watch the second half. And the only person standing there against that wall is an old school apartheid-era politie-kolonel.
Oh, man.
And he's in his blue uniform, he's got his stars and castles on his shoulders, he's got his scrambled egg on his cap. And his eyes are getting bigger and bigger and bigger because the president is walking directly towards him. And he's thinking, why is he coming to me? We don't even know. We're just like tagging along. And the president stops in front of this colonel and he puts out his hand and he says to him, "Colonel, I want you to know that today you have become our police."
Wow.
He said, "I'm now the president of this country. But I need you to know from me that there's no more you and us.
Wow.
You are now our police."
What a moment, and you were obviously a witness to that. Rory, am I correct in thinking that you've written a book about...
I have written a book, yeah.
Tell us about the book. What was it all about?
Okay, so if the first thing is it wasn't a kiss and tell type book, because I would never do that. I wrote,
Okay, I'm so sorry to do this.
No, not at all.
We've come to the end of the program already.
Oh,
unbelievable.
my word.
You need to come and talk about the book. Bring a couple of copies. We can give a few away.
Let's do that.
Very quickly, how has Madiba shaped and changed your thinking and your life?
Fundamentally, Julie, because I did not believe the stuff he was saying when he was released from prison 4 years before I met him. Remember, when he came out of jail, we didn't even know what he looked like, never mind what is he going to say. And he went to the Grand Parade in Cape Town, and he made his first speech as a free man, with the entire world's press literally hanging off every word. And he said, quoting from the Freedom Charter, he said, South Africa is for all her people, both black and white. And this cynical white cop is sitting in his office in John Vorster Square thinking, yeah, whatever. Of course you're going to say that. That's the party line. I didn't expect anything different. But I didn't believe it. I thought it was a political facade. It was convenient. You'll win votes by saying that stuff. And on that day, when I heard this exchange between that colonel and our new president, Julie, if you smacked me flat on the nose, I would have been less surprised.
And that's where we have to leave it. I can't wait to have you back in studio to talk about your times with Madiba. No doubt he has made a huge impression on you.
Massive.
To the point where you've written a book. So that's what our next interview is going to be about.
I look forward to it.
I do too.
Yes.
That was Rory Steyn talking about the way Madiba touched his life. He was, of course, an ex-cop, South African Police Service, and he also was part of, and still is, part of VIP Protection Unit. Any celebrities or international sporting teams that come to South Africa are taken care of by Rory and his team, like many other protection services being offered here in the country. We'll talk about that, his book, and lots more when he comes in again. Thank you for watching. Let's go for an ad break. And remember, still to come on the show, we'll be talking about Islamic Airline's 25th anniversary. Soraya Nawab will come in and talk about the work that is being carried out by that amazing organization. Undoubtedly, they have truly given our community a lift up as far as social cohesion and family matters is concerned. But right now, like I said, we can't seem to get away from politics. We are at a point in our lives here in South Africa with all of the changes and the change in, obviously, presidency. We're all waiting with bated breath. We had that amazing talk, the SONA address, where President Cyril Ramaphosa indicated that there is a new dawn. I'm not sure. Well, at the time I was pretty excited about it, but I've kind of changed my mind. The euphoria has lifted a bit. Common sense and, the hard facts are beginning to settle in. Like I've said, 2 amazing changes to cabinet, but for the rest, it's almost laughable and very, very disappointing. But that, of course, brings us then to the budget, which was delivered last Wednesday by Malusi Gigaba. Is it poor-friendly? Is it people-friendly? Going forward, how is it going to impact on our lives? So to talk about all of that and more is Tasneem Issop. She is a political analyst. She's based at Wits University. Let's introduce the young lady to you, and then let's get talking about our futures, because it's our tax money that we're talking about. Tasneem, salaam alaikum, welcome.
Walaikum salam. Thanks for having me on the show.
Lovely to have you here. And I would be correct in saying it is our future, it is our money that we're talking about. So we do need to hold these ministers and government accountable.
Absolutely. This is fundamentally, the budget is about us. It's about every citizen of the country. And that's why a lot of people have always said that you need to pitch the budget at a level where it is understood by every single person in South Africa, because it concerns everyone in the country. So we should be very concerned.
And critical.
And critical, yes, at all times.
And voice our opinions.
Absolutely.
All right, before we get to all of that, we need to know who's Tasneem Issop. I know you've told me that you're based at Wits. Tell us more. Who are you and what are your dreams, hopes and aspirations as a political analyst?
So I'm new to the political analysis scene. It's something that I'm finding my feet in, but that I'm enjoying quite a bit at times. But my day job is to do research. I do research for an institute at WITS called SWAP, the SWAP Institute. And I mostly work on popular politics, protest movements, political parties. I've done some work on the EFF previously. And I have a background in a little bit of activism here and there, which I like to keep at and keep politically active.
All right,
so that's me.
Obviously, as a young person and involved in the type of work that you're involved in, obviously coming from an activist background, your take on the new presidency and the reshuffle of the cabinet, we'll get to the budget in a short while. Your take on the current scenario and future aspirations for South Africans?
I think it was good for us to celebrate the moment of Jacob Zuma leaving the presidency, but at the same time I was cautious in that moment, and I still am cautious. Because although there's a change in the leadership of the country, the idea of a transition we need to really think about, right? What is a transition from and to? And I think we need to talk about the deeper kind of policy issues, the issues around how to root out corruption at a deeper level, because Jacob Zuma is just symbolic of a broader problem. Yes, he was spearheading it, but his removal doesn't mean that it's totally done away with. So I think we really need to reflect on a deeper level and how the figures who are now leading the country have still been around, in and around the political system in South Africa for many years. So yes, happy we should have been that Jacob Zuma left, but cautious and critical at all times about what's to come next. Then we saw the cabinet reshuffle, and it feels like kind of in the space of 2 weeks, the country's gone from high mania, euphoria to really coming crashing down. And that's part of my problem, is that Ramaphosa and the new leadership set up a certain expectation in the country, and I don't think that they'll be able to meet that expectation as quickly as many of us would like.
And the reality is that what you and I don't see, well, as a political analyst, you work with this type of analysis on a daily basis, so you would see what's going on behind the scenes. But ordinary civilians like myself don't see what's playing out, behind closed doors, and we also know that's probably one of the reasons why the reshuffle of the cabinet was then delayed by an hour and a half, because deals were being cut behind closed doors. And obviously if that didn't happen, we would have seen once again, probably a divide within the ANC. And I think the ANC is working very hard in trying to appease all the stakeholders, because if they don't, I don't know. I still think that the ANC is in trouble come 2019, but I don't think that it's as rosy as it looks, or as they seem to think it's going to look.
Absolutely, and you hit the nail on the head in terms of appeasing different groups and constituencies and factions in the ANC.
And keeping some, pardon the interruption, keeping some of those ministers who clearly it is time for them to leave. They've really messed up, and they've messed up big time, and they've lined their pockets, and they've truly cost the country dearly. And that is what is really hard to swallow, is that they've retained someone like Batibile Dlamini and others like her. You lose confidence in the ANC and the presidency.
Absolutely, and I think that's what a lot of people will see with this moment, with the cabinet reshuffle, is that those same figures are around. So someone like Batibile Dlamini is exceptionally hard to remove from cabinet, because she represents a really important constituency in the ANC as president of the ANC Women's League. So it is about bringing together all of these different parts of the ANC and the tripartite alliance, in addition to that, to try and hold that together. So this cabinet was very much about balancing the fact that you needed to show the people of the country that there is a change, that things are shifting, but at the same time needing to manage the ANC and the politics in the ANC. And this is important going towards a general election as we are next year, because the ANC needs to have its ducks in a row in order to go out and campaign. And I think that has played a big part in the choices for this cabinet.
So we're going to have to live with it for a little while longer, unfortunately. But as you say, she does enjoy great support. What is it that even with Zuma, there were so very many, he had a strong support base. What is it with these leaders, with these ministers, that are as corrupt as you can get? You and I can see the corruption. It stares us in the face. And yet the masses are prepared to forgive, forget, overlook and move on. Why?
Well, I think we all have our attachments to certain political leaders, and often we, in the Zuma era, especially in the last few years, we ended up overestimating the lack of support that he had, and trying to cover over the fact that he did have support and that political leaders do enjoy support. So, in my view, all of our political leaders are in one way or another problematic, but they enjoy support from various sections of the public. And that's because they represent something for those people in many instances. So when you look at how Zuma came into power in the ANC, he came in on the back of needing to really change the way the Mbeki era had constructed, the economy, had isolated parts of the alliance, especially those who are considered on the left of the alliance. So that's how he came in, as representative of those things, right? And I think that's important, that people have certain demands, people have certain claims in the political space. That's average people, down people like us, right? From the ground level all the way up. We have our own hopes, dreams, aspirations for the politics of the country. And that means that we place our faith in certain politicians at times to represent us in those spaces.
Early days yet, and I know you are, we're going to be talking the budget in a minute or two, but come 2019, EFF is making a lot of noises about land reformation. It's the hot topic at the moment. Is that going to garner them lots and lots of votes?
Well, I think that the EFF must, in some small measure, be commended for their efforts on the land redistribution, the politics around land redistribution, right? Starting from a lot of these leaders' time in the ANC Youth League, where they raised, that was back in 2008, where they raised the issue of land redistribution and land expropriation without compensation, and really put it in the center of public debates. And since then, after they got expelled from the ANC, moved over to the EFF, they've kept that as a hot topic. And I think it's important to...
It's serving them well.
Sure. And it's important to highlight that, because that's such an important political matter, and it really stands at the heart of a lot of issues in the country. I think that what we need now, and what we saw in the debate yesterday, was an attempt to get to, let's talk about modalities, let's talk about how this is going to happen, let's talk about who's going to be impacted first, how this whole thing's going to play out. And I think that's important now, because it seems to me like we have an in-principle agreement from the two major political parties, excluding the Democratic Alliance, that land expropriation without compensation needs to happen. And this is a big win for the EFF, and I would say that they're probably going to claim it, despite the fact that there have been many other smaller groups raising this issue for many years, that it's been in the discourse, the political discourse of the ANC and other parties pre-democracy. So it's always been around, but the EFF has really kept it there and kept their finger on it for some time now, since they got into parliament, and they will continue to use that as a political point. Yeah. And
they're on the button with that, are they not? They're holding on to a great ticket, and I think it's going to garner them lots and lots of votes going forward. Let's go for our first ad break, and we'll get back continuing this discussion and hopefully touch on the budget when we get back. Tasneem Issop is a political analyst. She's on our show this morning talking to us about politics, of course, and we're also going to look at the budget. What do you think of it? Well, we're going to hear what Tasneem thinks of it and how it's going to impact on you and I. Tasneem Issop is our guest. She's a political analyst. She's based at Wits University. We're talking politics, we're talking the reshuffle of the cabinet, we're talking the budget, and a whole host more as far as politics is concerned. We talked about the ANC, we talked about the EFF. I'm seeing cracks in the DA, and it almost looks like there's a witch hunt out for Patricia de Lille. What is going on with the DA?
Well, I think the DA is a typical case of when an opposition party starts to get more electoral support and get more pools of power, state power, that is, access to government. So that's what we saw happening in 2016. After the local government elections, the DA won a significant number of the metros in the country, and that gave them a lot more to govern, really, in the country. And that meant that the kind of factionalism in the DA became exacerbated because there was now all of these new places that you needed to deploy people to, all of these new places that you needed to govern, right? The Patricia de Lille issue is interesting. It seems like the DA was trying to get rid of her in a very kind of roundabout way. Instead of following party processes to get her out of the position, they went about it in a very messy way, and they lost. Patricia de Lille ultimately won her bid and won the vote of no confidence, so she's still the mayor of Cape Town. But that really showed the cracks, right, where the federal executive and a mayor were in significant disagreement. And the constitution of those factions around the DA are starting to become clearer. And although we don't like to call it factionalism when it comes to the DA, ultimately it does come down to that, different political interests within a political party. They've also made a number of allegations around Patricia de Lille, some of which need to be tested. And I think, again, they're going out against one of your mayors like that doesn't sit well with a political party unless they have firm evidence, and then you get rid of them and you do it in a very clean way, which they haven't done. So I think definitely a lot of cracks showing in the DA, not only on the Patricia de Lille issue. We can also talk about Helen Zille and what's happened there over the last few years, actually, with them trying to get her to toe the line and not being able to. We can talk about Mmusi Maimani's contested leadership of the DA. So there are many cracks that are showing there.
Had they got rid of Patricia de Lille, I think they would have lost a very big coloured vote going forward into 2019, because she does have quite a big following in the Western Cape.
Sure, and those kind of politics are important in the Western Cape for better or worse. I mean, I would say for worse, because those like strict kind of racial politics that play themselves out.
Unfortunately, it's true.
Absolutely.
It's the facts.
Absolutely. So it's just a kind of disclaimer that those are the politics that are with us, right? And I think absolutely Patricia de Lille does enjoy a measure of support amongst that community in the Western Cape and in Cape Town. And getting rid of her would have dented them. And I think you saw that playing out even in the ANC caucus in Cape Town, where the ANC caucus said, well, no, as coloured members of the ANC caucus, we're going to support this mayor, right? And I think you saw those racial politics playing themselves out in caucus, and it would have played out in the city of Cape Town come the next elections. But there is a way to go until the next local government elections, because we still have to get through the national election and then a few years until the local government ones. But I think it definitely would have had an impact, and it does have an impact, because that's a big reason why a lot of people support Patricia de Lille.
We'll leave the budget questions till the last. I have 2 or 3 important concerns about the budget speech. But obviously you can't leave politics out of this discussion, because that impacts directly on the budget. Let's look at the issue around corruption and the Guptas. And we know that they've siphoned, well, the allegations are that they have siphoned, with all of their cronies, siphoned off vast amounts of money out of the country, billions. Do you think that's one of the reasons why the budget, or we have fiscal problems as far as the budget is concerned?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no doubt that the massive looting of the state has had a huge impact on the fiscus. It's not as if we wouldn't still be in some type of fiscal constraints had that not been there, but they have played a huge role. And it's corruption not only at the highest level. This kind of corruption goes through, and it goes across, I should just mention, the different municipalities, let's say, where not only the ANC governs. So it's not an ANC specific problem, but although the ANC governs most of the country, so that's why we talk about it within those terms, right? But it has taken a lot away from the money that we have to spend. I mean, when you're looting millions, whether it's 5 rand or a billion rand, you're taking away from money that could have gone somewhere. And I think that's what really stings about corruption. And what we're seeing now is that citizens are being made to pay for it. People who live in this country are being made to pay for that corruption.
By paying higher taxes in the form of VAT and everything else that goes with it.
Sure.
Are there efforts being made? I know that the mainstream media is talking about all sorts of extradition orders, etc., etc. But if that doesn't come to fruition, I'm sure it will happen, but if it doesn't, can we not work at starting to getting the Guptas and all their cronies to start paying back the money?
Well, those processes, I think, will take a long time to unfold, unfortunately. But there are other places that we can start, talking about how to get money back from that kind of corruption of the Guptas, that predatory corruption that we've seen, but also from things that have been happening for many years in South Africa, such as profit shifting, where companies take out billions from the country through very illicit means, and we haven't really spoken about that, although it is starting to get onto the agenda, and we could also recoup billions from that. So although all of these processes will take a long time to play themselves out, we need to really follow up on all of them, if only for symbolic reasons. But some of that money is needed back into the fiscus. So both, the Gupta side of corruption, but also companies that are moving money around the world and not actually putting it back into the country, not actually paying the right amount of taxes and so on. We also need to start following up on that and getting some of that back into the country.
Is it doable?
I think all of it is doable if there's political will and if the mechanisms are put in place. Certainly we have the institutions to do it. And now that we're again talking about how to build up our institutions again, how to make our institutions strong, we can definitely do it. So it takes political will and it is a lot of hard work, but it is doable.
Budget 2018, were there any surprises as far as you were concerned? How happy or unhappy were you about the budget?
So I was surprised by a few things. Obviously, the biggest surprise, although economists had been saying that it might have been coming, was the VAT increase, and that's been the big talking point around the budget. There were some other odd things.
Can I just interrupt you here about the 1% VAT increase? As usual, social media is abuzz with all sorts of petitions going around suggesting that if enough people sign up and oppose the 1% VAT increase, maybe it will be disregarded by government. I can't see that happening because they're very dependent on, recouping those monies for distributing in other areas of the economy where it's very sorely needed. But what do you make of, those type of messages going around?
I think it's very important that there are those messages going around and that there is some type of mobilization to show the dissatisfaction with the VAT increase. But
that doesn't mean that they'll do away with it.
Yes, yeah. So this is going to come down to what do MPs do in Parliament and how much pressure can the public put on political leaders to get rid of it, right? So I think it's going to be a difficult situation, but I think we have to, in some ways, channel our efforts into that. And I think there are groups that are organizing to put efforts into that. And then obviously, opposition political parties will have to debate the issue in Parliament because it still has to be debated. It's not set in stone yet. And it is something that we can still do something about, although that is a long shot now.
But there is a bit of hope.
Perhaps a little glimmer, and it does depend on how the public and how certain groups show their dissatisfaction. So in the past, and this was obviously pre-1994, there were, or some would recall that there were marches led by the labor movement against, VAT increases of this nature, and ultimately the labor movement did win certain gains there. And once again, if the labor movement had to come out strongly, which is a difficult ask because of how broken apart and fractious the labor movement is at the moment, but if something like a constituency like that would come out and have a mass strike, for example, against a VAT increase, we might see some changes. So although I think it's possible, I'm bleak, like my hope is less because
you don't need to look too far. Look at the Fees Must Fall campaigns. Look at the result of that. Monies are being made available to to make university or tertiary education, they're going to phase it in, of course, but to obviously offer it free going forward. So anything is possible. In closing, the highlight for you as far as the budget's concerned?
I think VAT is the big talking point, and we have to keep talking about it. I think on the fees issue, it's good that it's there. I'm fully supportive of it, but I'm really against the kind of idea that Malusi Gigaba put forward, that a VAT increase is to fund, free education. I think that's a kind of very sinister thing that's being said by him and by others in the ANC and in government, that the poor must pay for the poor ultimately. So I think that's problematic for me. But we'll have to talk more. I think the budget's going to be a big debating point for a measure of time going forward.
And you're right, because it's taking from the left hand to give to the right hand, so it doesn't quite make sense, does it?
Sure, and it's actually false in many senses. And there were a lot of moments where Malusi Gigaba was giving us, stats that were out of context, and things like that were disturbing around the budget. So I think that's why it's been so negatively received, and it's going to be a debating point.
Tasneem, it's been absolutely fabulous chatting to you this morning. I do hope we're going to be seeing more of you in future shows. Thank you indeed for your time and your thoughts on politics and the budget, and shukran once again. That was Tasneem Mohammed talking to us about obviously the political situation, the SONA and the budget. Bright young button, and we do hope we're going to see lots more of her in our shows here at ITV. Another ad break, and then we're joined by Suraya Nawab talking about the 25th anniversary of Islamic Airline. And welcome back. When the names Suraya Nawab and Islamic Airline comes up, I feel that they're synonymous with each other, because I kind of cast my mind way back 20 odd years ago, and I remember in our community the buzz then was Suraya Nawab and Islamic Airline, and I often wondered how would it work. Would it be just something that kind of fizzles out after time, or is this an institution that is truly going to serve our community? Alhamdulillah, thanks to Suraya Nawab, thanks to the Jamiyat, Islamic Airline today celebrates their 25th anniversary. And we as a community, the Muslim Ummah of South Africa, are all the richer for it, because they're here to hold our hands in our deepest and darkest moments of trouble and problems. Suraya is in studio with us to talk to us about Islamic Airline. Let's introduce her, and then we're going to take a look at a clip. Assalamu alaikum, welcome to the program.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and thank you for that very...
How do you feel 25 years and still growing strong? Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. It's been a long time, but it's been worth all the blood, sweat and tears that went into starting it, and the challenges that we still have. Nobody's perfect. We carry on having challenges, but alhamdulillah, I'm very happy, and I'm richer for it in terms of my own life and what I've learned through it, and through the people that have passed through the Kaline and are still there after so many years. So alhamdulillah.
Did you ever think that this is what it's going to result in? Did you have your moments of doubt? Did you think, I'm taking on this massive task, I have the Jamiyat behind me, they're giving me the opportunity, but what if it doesn't work?
Yeah. Initially, I don't think that thought even crossed my mind. But I know that there were many, many skeptics who thought this is just going to be a flash in the pan, and they're probably going to fizzle out, because I think I was knocking at the Jamiyat, and particularly Maulana Awam's door, so often that he probably thought, this woman, I might as well just give her something to start off, and I'm sure it'll just wish away, and it hasn't happened, and it's all by the grace of Allah. It's every minute of the 25 years has been the grace of Allah.
But you've been there for longer than 25 years.
Because we started the initiation of the whole service 2 years before, and we were 3 of us that actually were the brains behind starting a counselling service, professional counselling service with social workers and professional counsellors in the community, 2 years prior to it actually starting on the 4th of May 1992.
Who were the other two people?
Suraya Mullah, she's a dentist by profession, and she had been working in the Afghan refugee camps those many years ago. And so she had a passion for helping, especially young people. And so she came back, she was waiting for a registration, essay registration with the Health Professions Council and that, and she was very interested in this sort of work. And it's just fate. We knew each other from nowhere. And it's just Allah who brought us together. And the third person was Shirbanu Sakur. She was doing her master's in-service training at Baragwana at that time, the Chris Hani Baragwana's hospital. And we were friends. We had known each other and we were chatting about this. I had finished my social sciences degree and then postgraduate in counseling. And I really wanted to, I was doing in-service like practicals at FEMSA, Lifeline, the 702 helpline. Telefriend at that time was a suicide line, very Christian-based. But there were no services in our community. And I had a passion for this, and for me it was a calling. I needed to do, I just felt Allah has placed me there and given me the time and the knowledge that I had been studying for so many years to do something with it and to help others. So for me, that's what it was. And so we started. It just so happened that I was the only one out of a job when we launched. And so the other two ladies were very much in the background, but very supportive. And so that's why the Kaline, as you said, is synonymous with my name.
Let's take a look at a clip that you brought in with you, and inshallah after taking a look at that, there's so much more I need to talk to you about Suraya Nawab and the 25th anniversary of the Islamic Airline, inshallah. So let's go to that clip.
I initially heard about the Kaline when I was in high school. We had to do every year compulsory hours for community service. So I approached the Kaline, and a group of friends and I, we went to one of the orphanage houses here in the Mayfair area. And that, I think, was the starting point from when I realized that I really want to give back to my community and help others. So I think the Islamic Airline played a major role for me in terms of figuring out where I'd like to go in terms of my career. I hope that by the end of this course, I'll be able to become a very good counselor using whatever that I've learned, and hopefully touching the lives of others.
For me, it's because of due to life experiences that I've had. I feel that I want to help others who have lost their way. And by way of counseling, you kind of help people come back to who they are, and also in a way come back to Allah. So by helping your community and helping others who are in need, you are giving back in a way which I feel gives us a sense of peace and fulfillment. Honestly, would like to see a drug-free society in our communities, especially in our Muslim communities, and also a lot of us that have lost recognition of Allah to come back and to find ourselves and to find success. And at the end of the day, I think success is truly with Allah. It lies with Allah, and by us helping others, that is a form of following firstly our Prophet Muhammad Mustafa Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and his ways, because he is the one who strived for our ummah. So we need to think about what can we do to strive for our ummah, for our community, for our Muslim community. And this is what our Muslim community is forgetting. This is what our youth is forgetting by going and getting themselves involved in drugs. And so that is why I feel that it's necessary for me, even if it's just me, one person or one woman, to make a difference. Just like how Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was one person who made a difference, I feel that I myself can do this, just by helping even just one person.
Okay, thus far I've been doing the basic counseling skills for a week. So I've had 2 sessions, and the first 2 sessions have focused on self-awareness and self-development before we move on to the actual counseling training. And I think these first 2 sessions have been extremely informative, because we've been taught that in order to understand someone else, we need to understand ourselves first. So there's been quite a lot of introspection and self-actualization that I've taken from the first 2 sessions, and that's really allowed me to think about how I'll be viewing clients and how to eventually assist clients in their plight. I completed my BA degree in psychology, and so I'm using the counseling course as a way to further my studies and to put into practice the counseling portion. So obviously to gain the knowledge of counseling and the skills which go along with it. And I've chosen the Islamic Airline because it gives me an Islamic perspective on counseling. So that's a big plus for me, especially for the Muslim community, which is where I see myself practicing the counseling, inshallah. Also, it's for my own personal growth and, like I said, for community growth. Okay, so inshallah, by the end of this training, I hope to be able to use these skills for my own personal growth and to use it in practical experience, hopefully assisting at the Islamic Airline, but eventually with my own studies, using it with clients in the Muslim female community. That's where I hope to specialize. And just creating the Islamic awareness to show that even Muslim youth shouldn't be afraid to come and ask for the assistance they need, and that there are these facilities which allow you to come and speak about that which you feel afraid to maybe speak about in different environments. So inshallah, I hope to be the platform that people can utilize.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Razia. I'm a volunteer at the Kaline. I'm here for the last 9 months. I'm a registered counsellor with Health Professional Council, and I do a lot of counselling work. And I just found that I needed to give back to society, and I felt that the Kaline is a good place to start. My experience here has been extremely rewarding. I have had a variety of people that I've met here from very different walks of life. And there are many issues that have come up, what we work with. What I found is a trend here at the Kaline. I work a lot with couples, and I find that relationship issues seem to be a huge problem in the community. Sometimes I often see individual clients, and we deal with a whole lot of issues. We deal with abuse. We deal with infidelity in the marriage. We deal with outside interference, particularly with in-laws. And I found this extremely rewarding work. What's extremely rewarding for me is the difference it's made in people's lives. What I found really rewarding about the Kaline, particularly, as I mentioned, we get different nationalities coming in, is that people, even when they don't even know English that well, they're able to come in and express themselves, and I've actually found that, this has helped. The counseling has helped them. They feel ostracized in a community where they don't really understand the language, but they're able to come and express themselves in a way where we can, we look at feelings and emotions, and makes them feel heard. And I found, I've seen success stories. I've seen people who are very, very grateful to have this opportunity to be able to come to an institution like the Careline, where they don't have to pay that much, which is accessible to them. I found that there's so much of self-growth actually in this work, and I think that has been an amazing experience. I feel that inshallah, with Allah's help, we hope that and I hope that I can do much more for the community and for the Careline. Inshallah, Allah bless this work that we do.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Adila and I am a volunteer at the Islamic Airline. My background is that I'm a psychology professional registered with the HPCSA, and I'm also a counselor registered with the CCSA. As a human being, I feel that it is important to give back to society and especially to the community in which we live. At the Careline, I have found that we have a lot of relationship problems that we come across from individuals, and it's good to see that people actually approach the Careline for assistance, because in our community there is a huge stigma against counseling. It is nice to know that by offering our services, we are trying to assist people to mend their relationships or to mend the problems that they are encountering in their personal lives, in their relationships with their families, sometimes with children as well. When we see a difference with the people that we've dealt with or assisted or counseled, it's very rewarding to know that we have actually made some sort of difference in their lives. By providing this kind of work, we would like to see the stigma of counseling being dispelled in our community. We'd like to see more people coming forward, especially those who are encountering huge problems, so that they can get the assistance that they need.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Khatija and I've been at the Islamic Airline for 17 years, and I've loved every minute of being here. Coming to the Careline was like coming to a sisterhood. I found a group of ladies who were happy to help people unconditionally and volunteer their time. My reason for coming to the Careline to do counseling is because I'm passionate about helping others, and I feel it's important to give back when, alhamdulillah, we have been blessed with so much. I found it interesting that sometimes you'd have somebody that you just listened to, really, and they were so thankful, because in society they don't even have anybody to listen to them. They're just thankful that you spoke to them and acknowledged them. I hope to make a difference here, inshallah, and continue to volunteer for as long as I can. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Khudaija. I am at the Islamic Airline for about 20 odd years. I was here right from the beginning, although I've had a broken service in between to have my children and things like that. I always wanted to do volunteer work, and I'm passionate about helping people and empowering women. I would say that is what I am most passionate about, is when I see a woman walk out of the Islamic Airline and she is empowered and she can make her own decisions and she becomes more independent and more confident. I also see the trends that we see nowadays, that is a cause for concern. I think is a lot in relationships with couples. We have lots of issues with online chatting and infidelity as such, and we feel that is in the future maybe that has to be addressed, because as you know, the Islamic Airline, we are ever evolving and changing, and we know that we have to keep up with trends, and that's how we keep in the community to help the community as such. Going forward, I think I wish the Islamic Airline all the best for the next 21 years, and inshallah I can be a volunteer for as long as I can. Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum.
And welcome back. MashaAllah, Suraya, I think that was beautiful. And I think all the questions that I had lined up for you this morning has been answered by that clip. You have an amazing team. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you guys and may you grow from strength to strength. The one thing that stood out for me is that I didn't see any brothers featured in the clip. And my thinking is that it's not only women that have issues. And when there's an issue in a home, wherever there is problems and people need counseling, it's not only the burden or, you know, the woman that has to come to a counsellor, come to Islamic Airline and state her case and get support. Because when there is a problem, whatever the problem is in the home, whether it's marital, whether it's substance abuse, whatever the issue might be, it's really about family dynamics that are not in sync, and either the couple, the mother and the father, and the entire family needs to be in supportive counselling. So why are there no men in your organisation?
Okay, one of the ladies spoke about the trends that we track. And one of the important trends that we found that has developed from the time we started in 1992 to now is that there are more males coming forward, first of all, as clients. So we'll get more males that would actually initiate the service, so call in and ask for assistance because they're having some sort of issue in their home or personally as well as an individual. So that's the one way we've seen more men coming forward. And then we've had more men that have actually asked to be counsellors. So I think it's a process that has evolved, and right now we do have male counsellors. And by the way, the Jamiat is looking at, they've started a very small service which is under the guidance of the Islamic Airline for male counsellors. So Anisa has just completed a training program for about 6 males who were screened and did the biographical questionnaire and went through the whole process. And they're presently doing their practicals. But we've had male counsellors for the last about 6 years that come in. But most of the male counsellors obviously are breadwinners, so they have businesses or practices to attend to, and so it's very difficult for them to come in during the day. So we've done like Friday mornings when 1 or 2 of them gave us the 3 hours, or Saturday. So we open 2 Saturdays in a month now, and so a lot of males are doing it that way in terms of fitting the counselling, the passion for counselling and helping others into their work life.
All right, with about 2 minutes to go, or less than 2 minutes, people accessing your services, counselling service, any form of support service, do they pay for those services?
We don't have any standard rates as in a fee. What we do have is the Department of Social Development supplements only for professional posts. So they're only supplementing chief social workers and so on. As you know, there are lots of other expenses, the admin, the telephone, the computers, lots of other admin expenses. So what we have to do is we have to raise the money. And unfortunately, because people come there, get the help and don't walk out with something tangible, you know,
it's difficult to pay for it.
They find it difficult to pay. And so what we do have is we do at the intake have a form that explains this, that we have expenses as well, and to cover those expenses, we would appreciate a donation. But we do not turn anyone away. There are many people that come in flashy cars and are having issues because marital problems and other social problems happen to all of us. And they won't pay a cent and they'll go out. We'll get a woman that comes in who's been destitute or left out on the street, and she'll take out 10 rands and say,
this is all I can afford.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's where we have to leave it. But the good news is that Islamic Airline has formed a collaboration with Let's Talk, and inshallah, we'll be seeing you at least once every 2 weeks. And we will be seeing you in 2 weeks' time. We'll pick up where we left off and talk about a whole host of social cohesion or family dynamics, call it what you will. But those are the issues we're going to be looking at. Shukran very much for being with us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you guys for 25 and more years going forward, inshallah. That was Suraya Nawab from Islamic Airline. She's here while talking about the 25th anniversary of Islamic Airline. They have filled a huge vacuum in our communities, and we make lots and lots and lots of dua that they're here forever and a day to obviously service our children, our grandchildren and future generations, inshallah. That's where we have to leave it. Thank you so much for your company today. I loved being with you. Till the next time, as always, a big thank you to the production team, and from me, Julie Alli, Khuda Hafiz.
حن قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا حن قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا يا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا يا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا ويا